There is a sound your baby has been waiting for. Not music, not the TV in the background, not even the sweetest sound of their favorite toy. It's Dad's voice. And when your baby hears it, something happens inside their brain that scientists have only recently begun to fully understand. Something that does not happen with any other voice, any other person, even the person who carried them for 9 months. And once you understand what that something is, once you understand what is actually happening inside your child's brain that moment, you will never take the sound of your own voice as a dad for granted again. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you how the science of Dad's voice changes everything. Most fathers never know their baby learned their voice before they ever saw your face. Inside the womb, from around 28 weeks of gestation, a developing baby can hear. The mother's voice comes through clearly, carried through fluid, tissue, bone. It is the dominant sound of that world. But your voice? Your voice travels differently, because low-frequency sounds, and specifically that of a father's voice, which usually sits significantly lower on the frequency spectrum than a mother's, penetrate the womb wall more effectively than higher frequencies. A 2013 study published in the journal Psychological Science found that newborns show measurable physiological responses, changes in heart rate, changes in movement, to voices they recognize from the womb. Both parents' voices. Already familiar, already meaningful. But here is where it gets remarkable. Because of the difference in frequency, because your voice is physically processed by a different part of your baby's developing auditory cortex, researchers now believe that a father's voice and a mother's voice do not just sound different to a baby. They are experienced differently. Dad's voice isn't just another sound. Inside your baby's brain, it has been assigned its own category, its own place, its own meaning. And that meaning? It is being built right now, every single time you speak. Now I want you to picture something. Close your eyes and imagine you walk into a noisy room. People talking, music, the hum of daily life. And somewhere across that room, your baby is sitting in a bouncy chair, eyes scanning. The moment you speak, not shouting, not performing, just talking, your baby's head turns. Not because you are the loudest sound in the room, but because to your baby's brain, your voice is the most distinct. A study from the University of Montreal found that infants as young as 4 months old have already developed what researchers call voice-selective attention. Their brains have begun to filter, categorize, and prioritize certain voices based on familiarity and frequency signature. And a father's lower register voice, that chest-resonant, deeper tone that most dads use naturally, creates what one researcher described as a contrast anchor. Think of it this way. If a baby's auditory world is primarily filled with higher frequency sounds, a mother's voice, other caregivers, siblings, your voice enters that world like a cello in a room full of violins. It doesn't just add to the music, it grounds it. And that grounding, that contrast, it does something to a baby's nervous system that no other voice can replicate. It signals safety. Here is the part I want every father to hear, especially the fathers who wonder if they're doing enough, who come home tired, who feel like the other parent has it more figured out, who sometimes think their baby doesn't really need them in the early months. Hear this. A 2017 study from Washington State University measured cortisol, the stress hormone, in infants during moments of distress. Researchers found that when a father's voice was introduced during a stressful event, cortisol levels dropped measurably faster than with ambient sound or silence. Your voice is not just comfort. It is chemistry. Your baby's brain has already learned to associate the sound of you with a reduction in threat, with the lowering of their biological alarm system. This is called co-regulation, and it is one of the most powerful things a parent can provide in the first 3 years of life. But here is what makes the father's role in co-regulation distinct. Because of the frequency difference, Because your voice sits in a register that the brain processes as novel and grounding simultaneously, researchers believe that a dad's voice may trigger a faster orienting response in infants than a familiar high-frequency sound. In plain language, when your baby hears something unfamiliar, something slightly scary, something uncertain, they look for your voice to know how to feel about it. Not because you're louder, because dad's voice has become their compass. Now let's fast forward slightly, past the newborn stage, into the toddler years, because the science here is just as striking. A landmark study from the University of Otago followed 7,000 families over 5 years, measuring one variable: how often fathers engaged in direct verbal interaction with their children under 3. The children of highly verbally engaged fathers had measurably larger vocabularies at age 5. Not slightly larger, measurably larger. And here's the part that surprised even the researchers. It wasn't the quantity of words that predicted the outcome. Because fathers, across cultures, across income levels, across education backgrounds, tend to use different vocabulary with children than mothers do. Less predictable, more varied, more likely to introduce an unusual word, a technical term, a piece of information outside the child's current world. Researchers call this cognitive stretching. Your child's brain doesn't just develop from comfort and repetition. It develops from productive challenge. And without even knowing it, just by being yourself, talking the way you talk, you have been stretching your child's brain every time you open your mouth. I want to give you 3 specific moments where the science says your voice matters most. Not the big moments, the quiet ones. The first is bedtime. The transition from wakefulness to sleep is one of the most neurologically vulnerable moments in a child's day. Their nervous system is de-escalating. Their brain is sorting the day's information into memory. A calm, familiar voice during this window, your voice, has been shown to reduce nighttime cortisol spikes and improve sleep architecture in children under 5. In simple terms, when you do bedtime, your child sleeps better. Their brain literally consolidates the day more efficiently. The second is the scary moment. You've seen this. Your child gets hurt, falls off a bike, or startled, or scared. And before they cry, there is a half second where they look for a face. Your face. And they listen for a voice. Your voice. What you say in that moment, and crucially, how you say it, tells their nervous system what to do with the experience. Calm, steady, matter of fact. You're okay. That was a big fall. You're all right. And their brain files that moment as survivable. That is emotional regulation being built in real time. The third is the ordinary conversation. Not the lessons, not the teachable moments. The drive home, the walk to the park, the completely pointless conversation about whether sharks could beat dinosaurs in a fight. Those moments are not filler. Those moments are the relationship. And that relationship is the architecture your child will use to build every other relationship for the rest of their life. Here is what the science is telling us, underneath all the research and the studies and the brain scans. Your voice is not one of many voices in your child's world. It is in a category entirely its own. It was built into their brain before they took their first breath. It has been shaping their stress response, their vocabulary, their emotional regulation, their sense of safety. Every single day since they arrived. You do not need to be the perfect father. You do not need to have the right words. You do not need to do anything other than what you are already doing. Show up. Open your mouth. Be present. Because to your child's brain, your voice is not just a sound. It is the sound that tells them the world is safe. And there is no one else on earth who can do that the way you do. If this changed the way you see your role as a father, share this with one parent who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, what do you talk to your child about that probably seems completely pointless, but secretly you love? I read every single one.